What is shaken, Internet? This is Salt's bringing you the How to Tank for Dummies Molten Core Guide. This guide will cover the WoW Anniversary Edition of Molten Core, which is a special 40-man LFR version of the original raid from Vanilla WoW. You'll have to have an average item level of 615 to queue for it, and the group will consist of 4 tanks, 7 healers, and 29 DPS. Now first, I'd like to apologize for how late this guide is coming out, as the Molten Core will only be open from mid-November through January 6th. However, you still have a month from the writing of this guide, so go ahead and enjoy. Now for those of you wondering about what you can get out of actually running Molten Core, you will get a 640 helm when you loot Ragnaros, you will get a Corehound mount from beating Ragnaros and earning the achievement, you can potentially get a pet and a vanity item for beating Ragnaros, and you'll get 2 to 3 hours of random group wipes and fun times. There is absolutely no loot from any of the other bosses or trash besides some gold and original Molten Core crafting materials. I can neither confirm nor deny if these mobs are capable of dropping the 665 BOE world drops. Now to be fair, there are 4 tanks in each Molten Core group, which is about 2 tanks more than you actually should need. Still, a basic knowledge of the fight is a big plus, so I'll be covering some basic tanking strategy for bosses with the video in the background. So a quick synopsis for those already running the dungeon. Face most trash away from the group, especially Corehounds. Kill adds before bosses in almost every circumstance. Single target and focus down Firelords while AoEing the groups of Corehounds together. Watch for being cursed on Gehennas, because you'll get less healing, and use big cooldowns if tanking Garr. Stay away from other raiders on Baron, and clear out all the trash pretty much everywhere for Garr, Baron, and Shazzrah. Especially watch for the big groups in the Executus fight and the Sulfuron fight. So, to start with, let's discuss the trash you'll see. The trash is pretty consistent throughout the entire raid, so you'll see similar packs all the way through. The giant rocks guys should be tanked with your back to the wall, since they knock you back. The Corehound should be tanked facing away from the raid, since they breathe fire in a cone in front of them. The little elementals don't really do too much, although ones later in the instance will actually stun you for an extremely long time. Try to keep up active mitigation when tanking them so you can mitigate some of that damage while stunned. Firelords can cause some serious problems, as they will periodically spawn lava spawns. These are smaller adds that keep casting spells at you like Fireball. The problem is that if hit with enough AoE damage, they will split into 2 lava spawns at full health. This means that when fighting Firelords, you should stop AoE and single target them down. From my experience, you'll want to focus on the Firelord first to stop new lava spawns from spawning, then focus down those lava spawns. One at a time, of course. Now later in the raid, you'll see some smaller fire and earth elementals. These ones don't spawn new adds at least, but they will stun you. The earth elementals have a 4 or 5 second stun, so be careful when tanking them and keep up your defensive moves or minor cooldowns. One last trash pack of note are the groups of Corehounds before the giant Corehound boss, which will be bosses 1 and 2 in this guide. These groups must be AoE'd down together, as after about 10 seconds of being dead, if any of the Corehounds in the group are alive, they will respawn at full health. This means they all need to die together, or they'll keep coming back. If one does come back, then you should probably just sit around and wait for them all to come back at full health and try again. They're not terribly hard to tank, so it won't be that too bad. Just don't pull more than one group at a time. Now the first boss is a Lucifron, and he patrols around the area with the aforementioned Corehound groups. You'll want to pull the first group of Corehounds while he's patrolling in the back, and pull them back very far to avoid engaging him in the group. Obviously this is LFR, so good luck. Lucifron himself is very simple. Simply kill his adds first, then kill the boss. He has a few moves, but literally nothing for tanks to worry about. If you're not actively tanking, you could remove some of the debuffs or curses on the groups to kind of help out the healers, though this is entirely unnecessary. The adds additionally cast Dominate Mind, which mind controls your group slowly but surely. If you can interrupt this, but they're incredibly fast casts, so don't worry about it and just AoE your group down. Okay, the second boss is Magmadar, the giant Corehound at the end of the exact same room that you'll fight Lucifron in. You'll have to go through a few more packs of Corehounds first, which again should be AoE'd down. But you will absolutely want to clear everything. This boss is a very simple boss. All you have to do is face him away from the group and use cooldowns when he enrages himself. Now the only other moves that he's going to use is a giant fear. causing everyone to run around like crazy for about 8 seconds. This is why you cleared the trash, of course. Otherwise, this is a very easy boss. The third boss is down the main room. When coming back after branching off to kill the first 2 bosses, try to steer the group down the right-hand wall. This is where the next boss is, so you have to go here anyway. There's no new trash here, so I won't cover anything in detail. Now, Gehennas is the third boss, who is again pretty simple. His adds need to be targeted first because they will stun their targets over and over again. The boss himself only does 2 important moves. The first is Rain of Fire, which just drops fire on a spot. Move out of it. The other is Gehenna's Curse, which cuts your healing by 75%. This especially needs to be dispelled on the main tank quickly. If you have some way to remove this debuff on yourself when tanking, do so. Otherwise, use cooldowns when you have it, especially big ones. The only strategy on this boss is to pull the adds away from the boss at the start. The healing curse is only cast on people who are standing close to the boss, so if the add tank/tanks are away from the main boss, they won't get the debuff, letting the healers focus on clearing out the main tank's debuff before dealing with anybody else. Now the next boss is Garr, and you should clear the entire room before pulling him. This includes all the trash out by the lava as well, as it's highly possible they will get pulled by accident if you don't. Garr has a bunch of little elemental adds with him. They should be tanked separately in a perfect world, while the boss is focused down, but this is LFR, so they'll probably just get AoE'd down quickly. Each time a little elemental dies, Garr will get a buff and deal quite a bit more damage. When all the adds are dead, the boss will deal significantly more damage. You can either use cooldowns early, or if you're amazing with AoE and somehow tank all the adds and the boss simultaneously, you can use cooldowns immediately. Or use cooldowns late when Garr is super buffed. He'll knock people around and slow down their movement speed from time to time, but there's nothing else important for you to do as a tank to know. He can dispel the group, removing all your buffs, but this really isn't that big of a deal. The next boss is Baron Geddon. He runs around in the next room with 1,000,000 mobs in it. It's really best to pull him back to the Garr room if you can convince your group to do so. Basically, this boss will blow up raiders at random. Just try to spread out as much as possible and not stand close to anyone if you can avoid it. Also, Baron will periodically radiate energy. For melee and tanks, just run out of the bad red zone until he's done, and then go back in. Now, after you defeat Baron, he'll actually explode, doing massive damage to anyone standing close. So run away and laugh at those silly melee DPS. The next room has a ton of trash that all needs to be cleared out before killing Shazzrah. Shazzrah, when you engage him, will start cursing players, dealing double damage with his spells on the cursed players. If you get the curse and you're tanking, and it's not dispelled quickly, you need to use big cooldowns because you'll be taking a lot of extra damage. He'll also burst with arcane energy repeatedly, damaging anyone kind of close to him. Chazzy will blink around the room to random raiders, but try to pull him back towards the middle so that you can keep him away from those people, because that's the best way to minimize the damage he'll deal with that arcane burst. He's pretty simple overall. Just watch for that curse on you to let you know if you need to pop some big cooldowns. At the far end of the area is the 7th boss. After you cross the bridge, start clearing trash down towards Sulfuron Harbringer and his little priest adds. This will require your whole group to be focused on interrupting the adds the whole time to stop healing. So basically, since it's LFR, expect a lot of healing to be done by the adds. The adds will continuously heal the boss and other adds with their Dark Mending spell. You need to interrupt this as often as possible to stop the fight from dragging out. It's best if one tank can grab all the adds and mark one to focus down, while another tank goes ahead and grabs the boss. The adds also do DOTs and nukes, but are otherwise simply AoE tanked. If you can set people to interrupt different adds, this makes things much smoother, although this really isn't required. Sulfuron himself has several damaging moves, but none that are of a significant nature. You want to tank him away from the group as he regularly casts Demoralizing Shout, which reduces the attack damage of anyone near him. If you tank him close to the others, then they will do less damage to the adds, which might result in the heals being even more effective on the enemies, which might result in a longer fight, which might result in a wipe. The only important move that he actually has is Inspire, which will cause the adds to deal more damage and attack faster for 10 seconds. This means that the add tank needs to use cooldowns when the boss casts Inspire, as the damage will spike significantly. Now going up the ramp partway, then hanging a left, will lead you to the 8th boss, Golemagg the Incinerator. Kind of like the Burninator. Either way, this is one of the more damaging fights in the instance for tanks, because Golemagg will debuff his tank, reducing their armor. This will require a tank switch between 2 tanks on the big guy eventually, or some big serious cooldowns. Also, he'll put lots of DOTs on random raid members, which causes problems for the healers. Again, watch for your own debuffs and use cooldowns appropriately if you have multiple on you. You'll also see his 2 Rager ads. These should be tanked by a separate tank. They should also be pulled away from the boss to make sure that they don't do extra damage and don't get focused. Even if they die, they won't really die until Golemagg is brought down. So for once, don't focus the ads first. Afterwards, heading up and out of this area and up the ramp further will bring you to Majordomo Executus. He will not be here until you clear all 8 of the previous bosses, so don't bother until they're all dead. I can confidently say that this is the hardest of the bosses in the entire instance, as there are 8 ads that all hit very, very hard, along with Executus himself. His elite ads will do mostly melee attacks that are very damaging, and the healers will continuously heal all the other ads. Executus himself will randomly teleport people to the hot coals in the middle of the room, which damages anyone standing on them. If you get teleported here, run off of them. Executus should not actually be DPS'd on this fight at all, as killing the ads immediately ends the fight and gives you the win. You shouldn't try to be a baller and tank all 9 of these mobs in this fight, as they will kill you quite quickly. Instead, have as much CC as you can, which technically should be all of them based on a 40-man raid size, but whatever, on the healers. CC the healers. Then focus down any non-CC'd healers first. After that, kill the elites one by one. Generally, you want no more than 4 mobs on any tank, with a last tank kind of holding Executus in the corner if possible. If each of the 3 non-Executus tanks grabs 3 mobs, then this is incredibly easy. Just keep the healers interrupted and focus them down to not drag the fight out. Now once Executus ads are dead, then you get to start the long trek back around to Ragnaros' lair. I recommend running/jumping through the lava, which many people will do. If your friends jump off a bridge into the river of lava, you should totally follow them. If you defeated Executus, he'll be hanging around here waiting for you to talk to him. Discussing with him a little bit will start an event that summons Ragnaros, the Fire Lord. I love that he says he's been summoned too soon, when it's clearly past the time where Ragnaros was a thing. Dude, you died like 2 expansions ago for good. Get over it. Okay, so Ragnaros is the final boss in the dungeon, and really pretty easy. He will deal a ton of damage to random players, but his only real move is Wrath of Ragnaros, which knocks players back, often into the lava. Use dashes or anything else to get back on the platform as soon as possible, and try to keep your back to one of those rock outcroppings around the area. Now the only other thing the boss does is disappear around 10% health, spawning a lot of little ads. These are very simple ads and should be rounded up and AoE'd down. Right afterwards you'll go back to hitting the boss until he's dead. Now beating Ragnaros will net you the achievement. You'll immediately get some mail with an item that will let you get the Corehound mount. Additionally, you'll get an item level 640 hat based on your class by looting the boss. The boss also has 2 rare drops, a non-combat pet at about a 5% drop rate, and a Flames of Ragnaros vanity item also at about a 5% drop rate, which will make your weapon get a flamey look like Ragnaros' hammer. To be clear, nothing in the dungeon drops any loot besides Ragnaros himself. The good news is that there is no lockout on Molten Core, so you are the only limiting factor. If you can run it 10 times in a day, then you can loot Ragnaros 10 times for some fancy hats. You'll get the epic hat every time you run the raid, and get a chance for the pet and vanity item as well. You won't get the achievement or another Corehound mount though, so don't expect that in the mail. This is obviously a very brief guide for those interested in running the raid. I would suggest everyone who can try it, go ahead and do so, as I've had a lot of fun running the instance multiple times. It's really not that difficult, but you should definitely expect to wipe multiple times, as most people have never seen any of this content before, and will not run it multiple times. So a vast majority of the raiders you see in here will see this once, and only once. Be patient and persevere. The added bonus is that there are some extra tanks, so there's really not that much pressure on anyone to perform as a tank by themselves. The most tanks any fight would really require is maybe 3 on Executus, but most of the time 2 tanks is plenty or even more than enough. Enjoy the ride, and I hoped you enjoyed this guide. Click the annotation on the video to see more raid and dungeon guides. Please like, favorite, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and, as always, you keep it salty, Internet.